I think what our society is missing right now is that real human connection when we're always, staring at our phones and we're getting, that it
Yep.
has replaced human connection. And it's just so superficial that when you get back down to the roots of human connection and being vulnerable and going through one of these sessions, it's just remarkable and very, very rewarding to see it once or twice a month when we have these
Yeah.
groups that are just general population, not veterans. Veterans is a whole, different group and has its own dynamic and the way that we handle that. But
Yeah.
um, either way, it's the same result when people go through this. It's a complete transformation.
Yeah.
And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
Hey, everybody. This is Dean Walker from the Poetry of Predicament podcast, YouTube channel podcast. Been going on for 10 years now. Very excited to be in our 10th year. And this year is 2026 is turning out to be well informed by what we've been doing for the past year. We've had a year-long program on some online training that we called Islands of Sanity in a Mad World, which, interestingly enough, for the last 6 months of that year-long program has been during the Trump 2.0 presidency, which has obviously transformed virtually every aspect of what informs this podcast and the work we do here in Living Resilience, which is to serve the collapse aware and collapse acceptant communities around the world. And for me, from my perspective, it's needless to say, uh, every one of those factors that could be included in the collapse awareness or collapse acceptance that we keep talking about, every one of those aspects has been aggravated deeply and perhaps terminatedly by the Trump 2.0 presidency and the fascist administration that has taken over. Uh, in light of that, one part of what we're wanting to do this year is to continue the mental health theme, the relational health theme, the even spiritual and psychological health themes of this last year's program, the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. And I had the pleasure of meeting recently a gentleman named Brian Lindley. Hi, Brian. I know
Hi.
you got you on the screen this whole time, and I kind of apologize in advance for speaking for a minute or two to introduce you. But the work you do, Brian, and what you've created is, well, I consider one of the most powerful and positive examples of what we can do stepping into, if not this fascist reality and the horrors that it's been laying out for us since January of this year. If not that, then what? And for me, an even worse nightmare would be to do what we did at the pandemic, which is go back to business and life as usual. Because business and life as usual is what's gotten us into this fascist dictatorship. It's also gotten us into what so many of the viewers of this podcast are aware of, which is our self-terminating culture. If we aren't doing something about it, we're going to end ourselves, and we're going to take a lot of other species with us and so on. So, how can we do this one differently than we did the pandemic? How can we come through this less polarized, less mentally ill? We have immense mental illness concerns in this country and around the world, and they're just getting worse. They're being aggravated really daily by this, I call it the fire hose to the face of too much content, and especially content that's built to decenter us, built to make us unwell, unstable in ourselves, and especially to disempower us from coming together in any meaningful way for healing of our families, healing of our neighborhoods, our communities, and so on. In fact, it's quite obviously designed to do the opposite. This is where, for me, your work comes in as a powerful alternative to business as usual. Literally, the programs that you've stepped into to create a version of here in Ashland, Oregon, is a part of a nationwide effort and perhaps to some degree worldwide effort to bring alternative treatment and process and safe environments for healing to people who desperately need it and for whom there is very little alternative. Even in the mainstream, there's almost nothing. And what we're talking about is the well-being of veterans in the U.S. And this is one of the central points of your focus in your work in the organization that you've come to call Omnia Group. And again, it's in Ashland, Oregon. And that's as much as I feel comfortable introducing you. We talked a bit in the past few days, and I do know a bit more about you, but I really want to be quiet as soon as possible and turn it over to you and ask you can you paint us a vivid picture of what is the situation going on with mental health in general, but particularly for the veteran population and the other populations that you address, that you offer to in your work and in your Omnia group? What is the situation, and how does what you offer address the situation? And so, Brian, I just let you know it's been a pleasure to just get to know you and to get to know more about your group. I am in dire need of good news, and I consider you and your organization very good news at a time when, man, we all need it. So that's as much introduction as I feel comfortable offering. Welcome, and let's talk about this.
Yeah, Dean, thanks for having me on. Really enjoy talking about this and seeing the results of what our campaign and how we've approached psilocybin services. And that's a legal framework in Oregon where the voters allowed these clinics or service centers, as they called, to open up in certain counties. After Oregon approved it, it went back to the voters for each county to either opt in or out. And in Jackson County, it was a very slim margin. I was involved heavily in the campaign to keep psilocybin services legal
Mhm.
in Jackson County. During that campaign, what I was campaigning for was veterans' health and to keep this, particular method of addressing PTSD in veterans, available to them. And so that's been part of my core mission since we opened. Um, and through my own use of psilocybin, was able to address some trauma that was going on in my life.
Mhm.
And as soon as I had one session, the trauma just melted away, and I dedicated my life to this.
Mhm.
Um, it was just an amazing experience that allowed me to see my mental health and my trauma through a different lens. Traditional Western medicine, as far as, just prescribing another prescription or going to a talk therapist and ruminating about what current past problems you've had. And, they say one dose of psilocybin is worth about 5 years of talk therapy. And I think it even goes further than that, in that you're able to really just kind of alleviate yourself from all the stresses that the world is putting on us, and to um, go back to veteran services. We fundraise to host retreats here for veterans, which is a comprehensive program through the Heroic Hearts Project. So you can go to their website and learn more about the program, but it's very comprehensive. When our veterans go to the VA, they have a limited amount of resources available to them, and by the time nothing's helping them and they're just prescribing more medications, we get veterans who come in, we do consultations and screenings, and the list of medications they're on is, very long, and it just doesn't seem to be addressing their mental health and the general population as well. So psilocybin can offer a very effective alternative to what Western medicine has failed to address.
Yeah.
And that's just across the society as a whole, where everyone's kind of, a lot of people come to us and say, I've tried everything, and they're desperate. And it's just amazing I'm the first person that talks to them on the phone with a consultation call, and then we turn it over to a facilitator. So I'm involved in the process, and I take that first call and I hear what people are going through, with trauma, and with, you alluded to it before, it's the social media and the way it's destructive to our society, and what algorithms are pumping out. The algorithm learns what your confirmed bias is. And so you just go deeper and deeper into that rabbit hole, and pretty soon you're lost in it. And, if communication and human connection just seems, especially after COVID, like you said, it's just non-existent, or not like it was before. And people are desperate to form that reconnection with the self. And that's part of what psilocybin did for me, was I was able to reconnect myself. My family was saying, I was kind of like a stranger in the night. They didn't know who I was anymore. It's because I
Yeah.
was so consumed with all of this and trauma and outside static. And then after one psilocybin experience, it just changed my life, and I dedicated my life to it, quit my job,
Yeah.
uh, opened this service center, and we've been open for 26 months now, and we've seen over 1,000 clients. So
Yeah.
I've seen firsthand what this can do for people, from that first conversation I have with them
Mm.
to when they complete our program. You can actually see the difference in
Yeah.
in how they carry themselves, and how they talk and behave.
Yeah. If I could, I'd like to just go back to a couple things you said, because for you and me, I lay no claim to understanding the level of trauma that can be very much in the life and in the system of a veteran at any level. That's not something that I have in my experience, but I do have my own experience of my own brand of familial trauma, a lot of tough stuff to work out in my own at my own level in my life. And I've also got full disclosure, a substantial experience with psilocybin and other psychoactive substances done in a as sacred and as intentional a way as possible, not for entertainment, not to get high, not to escape, but to actually just gently lean in to a very different way of seeing the world and seeing my own life within it. So I just want to make those underscores. And I think you're talking about the same kind of shift in yourself at your
Mhm.
own level, that it occurred to you like nothing else. You know, if you try talk therapy, sure, it's effective in the ways that it is over the months or years that it is that a person engages.
Yep.
But for this level of trauma and this level of clearing our system in a good way, I know of nothing more powerful. So that's just, I want to add that. And also, you mentioned a bit too briefly, in my opinion, um, just what folks like yourself who have this extraordinary vision to share something that is very new. And for some people, confusingly new or disturbingly new, like all they ever hear about psychedelics and drugs and so on is all negative. It's all hyper sensationalized, and oftentimes for good reason, because they're abused out in the regular culture so often. You know, so it's easy to get a very confused or distorted picture. But when there's this level of intention and level of clarity and intent in designing your programs and designing all the policy work that it took to get through the Oregon legislature to the point where each county could vote on it, that's an extraordinary journey. You know, you don't just stumble into that. That's not like opening up a franchise for a burger stand. This is a serious amount of work, and work that means influencing and informing the community at large at a scale that the U.S. no longer does much of that. You know, where our politics is so completely flattened out and obviously geared toward corporatized interest. So I just wanted to mention those two pieces that you mentioned quickly, your experience of how transformative this can be, and also how much work it takes for a committed bunch of folks to be able to make something like this happen and make it happen, make it available to people in a good way. Both of those seem really important to highlight. And I just want to acknowledge you and your team and the multiple other parallel teams that have been making these things happen. So thanks for letting me just chime in. And I don't remember where I stopped you. And you were just, I think, starting to talk about either how you do things in a more specific way in your system, in your location, which is gorgeous, by the way. Got to see that a few days ago, and oh my goodness, you know, there's just an exquisite space. Uh, Talk about an intentional space. And then also, you mentioned a little bit about what it takes to fund this. You know, this is unfortunately, because it is new to this system which wants no part of something new and this transformative coming in. So they're going to make it as hard for you as possible. Like, not, you can't do regular fund drives and you can't do regular insurance funding and on and on are the challenges. So if you could just take up any of those threads that you feel comfortable with right now and let us know a little bit about how you do fund this or what kind of space you do create for people. And we'll eventually get to any of the ones you don't choose right this moment. So jump on in.
Yeah, so the difficulty of running a clinic like this is no small task. I have a business background, and my wife and I run the service center. She has a psychology background. And before we started this, there were a lot of roadblocks that didn't allow other people to open these types of clinics. And after campaigning and wanting to help veterans and other people with mental health issues that helped me, she and I decided we would just go and look for a building. that's when we found out that the zoning for these buildings was very difficult.
Mm.
Um, to find a building in downtown Ashland and to find the kind of building that we did, we were very lucky. It's not just an old refurbished doctor's office or doesn't look like a clinic. When veterans are coming in, if they're going to a doctor's office, they're already traumatized because it's just another doctor's appointment and they've had 100 of them. Our building is more like someone's comfortable living room. I'm in one of the rooms right now. It's got a fireplace and
Mm.
it just looks like you walked into someone's living room. Very comfortable, very quiet. The energy is beautiful. We have an outdoor space, so the OHA requires you to be in the room for a certain amount of time. So you might be, depending on how many milligrams you take, in that room for 6 hours. And we have an outdoor atrium space where, after 4 or 5 hours, when the client or the veteran starts to come out of the experience, it's great to get a breath of fresh air and start to integrate that experience in seeing some nature and just changing the channel and just going outside and starting to reflect on your experience.
Yeah.
Um, it's very difficult, as you know, psilocybin is a Schedule One drug. It's scheduled higher than fentanyl. And that creates a lot of bureaucratic problems for us. We've got every three-letter agency looking down on us, and rightfully so. We want this regulated and we want it done right. Doesn't make it easier to run one of these clinics. Um, there's a special tax bracket just for service centers, clinics like these. It's called 280E, and we cannot write off traditional expenses like a regular business because they consider us drug traffickers. And that also prevents us from being able to bill insurance. It prevents us from doing regular fundraising because we can't be a 501(c) nonprofit. Also affects our advertising, where we can advertise and how we can advertise. And we had a beautiful Instagram account with over 5,000 followers, and they just shut it off because they think we're trying to sell illegal drugs online, which we appealed it. And, there's no recourse. Our Instagram just got shut down. It's very difficult to out to people and let them know that we're here and also convey to them what we're doing and how we're doing this and the results that we've seen and the veterans that we're helping. And so being deplatformed and having a lot of restrictions make this, not an easy task. It's daunting, but it's the most rewarding work I've ever done. I was not a morning person when I was in my corporate life. Hated getting up in the morning, punching that clock, working 10-hour days, 5, 6 days a week, and now we're here 7 days a week. And if there's someone here who wants to engage in services, then I'm here for it. I love getting up in the morning, love what I do, and most of all, love seeing the results that it has. I mean, if this wasn't working and was just ineffective and I wasn't able to be on the front lines of seeing so many radical changes in both mental improvements and also physical as well. Phantom pain, our bodies process trauma, and it comes and oftentimes manifests itself as pain in the body. I've seen people walk in with a limp or a cane or back pain and then they say after a psilocybin session, it's just gone. So there's just so many beautiful outcomes and seeing that literally on a day-to-day basis. We've seen over 1,000 clients in 26 months. But because of all those regulations, it's more than a full-time job. My wife and I are both working, 50, 55, 60-hour weeks. So combined between the two of us as wage earners, that's 120 hours a week of work we put into this with all of our programs and making sure that everything is perfect, everything is right. Every time someone walks through that door, you have the potential, not me personally, the mushrooms, the way we work with them, our facilitators, our program, the way we approach it, we have an opportunity to change someone's life, and we take it that seriously on every single client.
Yeah. I've just got to say again from our visit when I came to visit to your facility a few days ago and meeting you and your wife in person, there's a energetic integrity that for anybody who's been in a good way, in a sacred way, in an intentional way around this type of atmosphere of that's implied by the use of these psychoactive drugs and to use them with this much intent and focus and sacredness.
Very
There's an
important.
integrity that one can return to. I think most of us actually had it from being, young children. We started to know what was true in the moment, what was
Mhm.
true
Mhm.
in this family moment, what was
Yeah.
true about the neighbor something just doesn't feel right. And it's an inborn, perhaps it has to do with the same kind of neighborhood that we call common sense in ourselves. But we have an inner sense of what's true and good and whole in our experience in meeting someone and perhaps visiting their space to really get a sense of what they do. And I absolutely got that sense of you, and I believe your Michelle, your wife's name is Michelle.
Yep.
Yeah, that that y'all are the real deal. And so, I'm just pleased to know y'all and to be more and more aware of your program and really want to support you all in being able to move this project forward in what I consider to be some of the most challenging times in U.S. history, perhaps in global history. It was already tough enough before we had a fascist influence in our governance and in our culture. Everything that you did before January of this year impresses the heck out of me because I have a sense of what it takes to bring something new into a culture that is so locked into the profit structures and the corporatized structures. So I, I guess I would like to just take a few moments to visit a part of the space that I have appreciated in my own intentional journeys in the past, and see if it rings a bell for you in any way. Because I had my own brand of trauma to work through, difficulties in feeling comfortable in the world, in just being myself. Like how can I find a sense of center or home in myself? Because talking therapy did not work well for me. I love them dearly. I know a lot of therapists, and I
Yeah.
considered being a therapist for a long time myself. But this was something different, and there was that kind of inner center is indeed it's at the center of my experience of these kind of sacred journeys or these ways of entering into a very different space in an intentional way, and to be able to let go of. I was a pretty armored kid. I grew up very damaged and armored up to avoid feeling the pain of that damage.
Yep.
And there was something about the intentional use and the sacred space that allowed me to lower down that. I didn't have to think about it. Just the armoring seemed to lower itself,
Yep.
and I could be present to a different quality in myself and also in the people around me. I could start to feel that sense that I was trying to describe before, that integrity of myself and the integrity of people around me. And there's a truthfulness that can show up in my own experience of myself. So I was delusional as I was so armored up as a young man. I ran some pretty big delusions, big opinions, and I had opinions about everybody and everything, and I armored myself with those kind of judgments and that kind of an aggression.
Hmm.
And when that armoring has a chance to just fade away for even a short period of time, I can't argue it. There's that judgmental, angry young man just didn't stand a chance. And it wasn't like it was told to back down. It just was like, okay, you can let go now. You can let go of that now. You have a choice now.
Yeah, we see that a
So
lot with people. They're coming
yeah.
in, they're feeling stuck, and we hear that a lot. I'm stuck. I want to find joy again. I have
Mm,
no human connection, and being very intentional in the work, we kind of explain the program, and it's very extensive. There's minimum requirements that you have to do with the Oregon Psilocybin Services. Our program is a lot more comprehensive than that, in that we're going to screen people to make sure psilocybin is safe for them. And then before they even come to Ashland, spend 2, 3, 4 hours with them over Zoom or the phone, preparing them both mentally and physically for a journey. And then when they're here, they need to be in Ashland for 3 days. It's not just to come in, lay down, eat mushrooms, hope you have a good time. We are teaching them mindfulness techniques to integrate the experience moving forward because they're coming to us because there's something about their mental health that they want to change and nothing is seeming to work. So we prepare them mentally and physically and set intentions and tell them what to expect. So they're coming in this, with hope and a familiarity of what's going to happen when they're here. And then just holding that energy. You alluded to you felt the integrity when you came here. We're doing this for the right reasons. If you got into this for the money, then you're probably got out by now.
right. Right. Yeah. Um, could you say just a little bit more? It actually blew my mind a little bit when you were describing how you have set up this program to be accessible for the veteran or the person that's coming in to be a part of, let's just say, one of the group sessions that you do. There is a certain amount of time that they're going to be in Ashland, and you actually help them get there and
Yeah.
get home, and you actually set them up with some follow through afterwards. Can you say anything about those elements?
Yeah, the follow-up afterwards is called integration. And anyone who is familiar with these types of therapies knows that integration is what makes this durable. Integration is the most important aspect of this.
Yeah.
So before we get to the integration, like when we have a veterans group come, we have other veterans as facilitators to help them to prepare for these journeys. And they spend a lot more time than, say, what an individual one-on-one client would do here at Omnia. Although it is extensive, we spend even more time with our veterans in addressing their mental health issues and suppressing trauma. We all suppress trauma, and that's when things like what you were talking about, that armor goes up. And so when we are able to fundraise enough money to host a veterans retreat, it's all free to them. Airline, we have catering that's psychedelic friendly. The facilitators do it at a reduced cost. We reduce all kinds of costs here to make it as affordable as we can. And then veterans, they can pay some money in if they want to, 400 or 1,000 or even $2,000 that will go to help support additional retreats. But when they do come to Ashland, we pick them up at the airport in a van all together. They travel from the airport to a resort property that is on 70 acres where they can integrate their experience and prepare, of course. And that's where we do the catering and the uh, preparation and where this group spends a lot of time together bonding. I've spoken to so many veterans that hopefully they have a dog, but they say my only friend, my only contact, my only communication is with my dog. I don't even go out anymore because the trauma is so bad. So,
Yeah.
veterans are accustomed to being in groups. And so when we do these group journeys, they now have a support system that they can bond with and go through this experience with, and then integrate and then make real friendships and create these connections that veterans need, because a lot of them feel very isolated. There's no mission anymore. They're always looking, for a cause, and they lose that part after their mission is over. And being able to be a part of one of these groups has just been so transformational for a lot of our veterans.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. So I'm just going to recap, make sure I'm hearing things in a good way. There are a number of different kinds of programs that you're offering. And one
Yeah,
of them is this group veterans oriented, very veterans focused period of time. Let's say it's 3 days in Ashland and in these residential facilities, and also in your facility in Ashland as well. And then the integration time by Zoom after they get home for
yes,
some period of time. And then similar groups that are not necessarily veterans focused, but a number of people being able, whether they know each other beforehand or not,
they
are able to
normally
do
don't.
something similar in a non-veteran context.
Yeah,
And they may or may not continue on in that integration type of group, Zoom style group afterwards as well.
yeah, they do.
And then you also mentioned this can actually be uh, just fine for one person to do, and with their own little downsized version
Yeah.
of this experience.
Hmm.
Is is that a good kind of recap of the type of work that you're offering, the types of groups that you're offering?
Yeah. So every month, sometimes 2 times a month, we do a group of 8 people, and they didn't know each other before, and they do have Zoom prep together, so they can form somewhat of a connection before they meet in person.
Hmm.
And the it's actually called Confluence Retreats, is the Omnia group offering Confluence Retreats, and that's run by Miles Katz, who was originally in the Synthesis Institute in Amsterdam. So you talk about a gentleman who has more experience in this field than anyone in Oregon, and
Hmm.
came in with a ton of knowledge. And so, in working in partnership with Miles, we bring in a group of 8 every month. And what's so amazing about those groups is you see them on day one, and they're kind of disjointed and a little bit nervous, and not a whole lot of interaction between them. But by day 5, after they've had 2 journeys here, the group bonding is just, it's so heartfelt to see it and see the transformation that they go to. And that's what I think we are missing in our society on a very large scale, is that community connection. And to see it on a small scale, and hope that that just has a ripple effect in people going out and making more connections and not being so isolated and being vulnerable and
Hmm.
going through this experience together. Um, After after the first session, you can see a change in the group dynamic, but then definitely on day 5, after their second journey, it's like you're just seeing a group that just went through summer camps, and at the end there's tears and exchanging of phone numbers and email addresses, and continuing integration as a group with them, but they carry on. And so that's what I think what our society is missing right now, is that real human connection, when we're always, staring at our phones, and we're getting, that it
Yep.
has replaced human connection. And it's just so superficial that when you get back down to the roots of human connection, and being vulnerable and going through one of these sessions, it's just remarkable and very, very rewarding to see it once or twice a month, when we have these
Yeah.
groups that are just general population, not veterans. Veterans is a whole, different group, and has its own dynamic, and the way that we handle that. But
Yeah.
um, either way, it's the same result when people go through this. It's a complete transformation.
Yeah. I really appreciate this last few minutes of what you're saying. I agree completely. We're ironically at a time of being more interconnected through our phones and social media and so on than at any time in human history. We know about things around the world instantly, and it can't help but turn into a fire hose to the face of
Yeah.
too much content.
Yeah.
And the cost of that is we're disconnected from one another, and we're also disconnected from
From
our own
ourselves.
center.
From ourselves. That's right.
So I don't think it's exaggerating to say what you just said, which is that these people, after a few days, perhaps a journey or two let's say up to 5 days of being together, they are shifted. They're fundamentally shifted. And what it sounded like you were saying is that it fundamentally shifted back to a core connectedness that I think we're all born with.
Yeah.
The way we bond with our own mother and parents and family and so on, very, very early, that's there even in children born now.
Yeah.
After a generation of social media and all that crap, so there is a place to return to. There is a center to return to. There is a coherence and a relatedness, a deep relatedness that we can return to. It is possible. It's not dead. But man, the fire hose to the face is not easy. After years and years of it, we start to normalize that disconnection. So I got to tell you, I'm very unapologetic about my full-throated support for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I don't know if people really heard, we're doing any tallying while you were particularly talking about the veterans program, which is not a cheap program to
No.
produce.
No.
You're flying people there, you're housing them in very nice accommodations. Your
Mhm.
facility is extraordinary there in downtown Ashland. And not to mention all that you've woven to keep those intentional structures in place, those processes in place, that it takes something daily to maintain that space. So, and that takes money. I'm just going to say the rough stuff, so you don't have to. It costs money to do this, and it is not cheap. And I don't know in this mental health slash physical health slash relational and spiritual health realm, I don't know of any other intervention that is more potent on a per event status. Like you're talking about one journey transforming a person's life.
Yeah.
You also talked about a program in which there are two journeys within a small number of days.
Yeah.
And so, and then there's the integration in implying that if people wanted to, they could stay very much in contact and keep creating and expanding their capacity to presence that coherence that they felt back in your facility in
Yes.
the journey. They can learn how to do that without the help of the mushrooms, if they want to.
That's the goal.
Yeah. And so I just want to open up a door wide for you to say whatever you can say about how is it to fundraise. In you talked about the challenges to fundraising that you're imposed with by by the government and so on. How do you do your fundraising? How can people like myself participate in helping you with that fundraising? What does it look like? How do we reach you? And of course, I'm going to be putting whatever information you tell us about in the show notes for this interview and for this video. How can we help?
I did sincerely appreciate that. That's been the biggest challenge, kind of what we already alluded to, is to make people aware that this is available. And then also to get funding for this. There's so many different programs out there that just get flush with cash every year. And unfortunately, our industry is not one of those yet. Um, and just before I go into the fundraising, you hit on something that I wanted to elaborate on more, which is the integration of this and the durability. And the goal at the end for our clients is to make those positive mental health changes moving forward. And a lot of times it's just not possible unless they did a psilocybin session first.
Mhm.
And beforehand, we're teaching them mindfulness techniques that will hopefully carry through after their psilocybin experience. My analogy that I tell people, it's like going to the gym. If you don't go to the gym, don't expect to be in shape. If you don't work on your mental health previous to a journey and then afterwards, don't expect anything to change. Yes, you may feel some very amazing positive effects for a certain amount of time, but in order to make this durable, you have to integrate it properly, and that's integrating it with your facilitator and then on your own as well. And those, mindfulness things are, meditation. How often do you meditate and get out of that monkey mind, fight or flight, executive function? Brain is always fired, going on all cylinders until we lay down and try to go to sleep at night. And all those outside, stresses and stimulus that we have going on in our world. So, those mindfulness techniques is like join a yoga class. I did. I'm just like 3 months ago started doing yoga with breath work and with meditation and with journaling and just go walk around the block, exercise, maybe change your diet, do something different.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what I hear from people, how their existing meditation practices improve after a psilocybin session because your mind, you know how to get there. The mushrooms have shown you how to get there.
Yeah.
That just wanted to touch on that a little bit before we move into the fundraising part,
Yeah.
which we do a lot of in just outreach to our clients who have come here before that maybe want to donate to, paying it forward to have allowing other people to have this experience as well who can't afford it. And then when they see it's for a good cause for our veterans who the VA is who they are, and they deal with ways that they can. Their bureaucratic system as well, and I just think that if they would just take psilocybin off a Schedule One drug, it would open up a lot of doors for us and allow us to do some things that we're currently not able to do. So private fundraising is really all we have that's available to us, and reaching that audience of people who might be wanting to donate and keep this program going and support our veterans that we absolutely should be doing as a country. Um, it's we just trying to reach those people through the avenues in which we can, make that a very small uh, audience or people that how we can reach them. So it's been difficult, but you just keep doing it and keep putting the word out there and hopefully reach the right people. And it took us about 14 months to raise the $35,000 that we need to do just one of these retreats.
Mhm.
Took a long time last time, but we know a lot more people now. We've people have gotten used to knowing us and that we're doing this for all the right reasons. And Heroic Hearts Project has been a wonderful organization to work with, and they help us with fundraising as well. So I don't really have any, big donors, and it comes from a lot of little donations, and any amount helps. And you can go right to our website, which is omniagroupashland.com. Omnia is OMNIA, and then Group Ashland. Um, and I've got my personal phone number on there. It's right on the website. Anyone can call me, and if you have questions about the program, I'm happy to talk to you about it for as long as you want to. I can go on all day. So, and that way, if you do want to become a regular donor, or you want to know how we can get your funds through a nonprofit, which Heroic Hearts is, they have a donate button on their website, which is just heroicheartsproject.com. And at the bottom of their donate button, it says leave a comment. It's the last little checkbox. A comment box will open, and all you have to do is type in Omnia Group Ashland, and that donation will be earmarked for our retreats.
Very good. So, Yeah, I'm not going to risk risk being obnoxious by going further with the fundraising thing. I just want to say again how uh, encouraged I am that you and your wife and all of the other teams around the state that are doing this. It takes immense courage. It takes such stamina to keep being committed to putting out the program, to finding some way of putting together the resources to keep it afloat and keep it at the level of integrity and quality that you clearly do. Um, but just my hats off to you all. I
Thank you.
so appreciate it. And I'm wondering if there's any of your experience, any of your inner resources that you could just share with us at really just the most human level, the most, kind of casual conversation between neighbors kind of a level. Um, is there anything from your now larger inner resources that you could share with folks about how to survive these times, how to get through these times, which can be so damn stressful, like existentially stressful.
Yeah.
We got a major suicide rate
Yeah.
in this country, and veterans are so far more likely
It's
to
about
commit
22 a day
suicide.
in our veteran population right now. We could
I'm sorry,
cut that in
say
half.
again.
It's about 22 veterans a day right now. More veterans have passed from suicide since all wars combined since 9/11.
Yeah,
So it's the injuries of war, and
yeah,
that's what we're trying to address. And that's one of the things, if they would just take it off Schedule One, we could cut the veteran suicide rate in half overnight.
yeah, yeah. So, backing back from there, because
Mhm.
that's just a mind-blowing statistic in itself. It's like, oh my God, what are we creating here? What have we maintained for far too long? But in terms of daily life,
Yeah.
for those of us who are just stressed and confused, like what is going on, and how can I make sense of this, and how can I be more connected with people when it just seems like everything wants to be polarized and like that. Are there any suggestions you might have, any practices that you've found useful? Not that any of them's going to answer all the problems of the world, but just that you find helpful to ground yourself, to keep yourself on an even keel and keep you in touch with that inner integrity that we've been talking about in our time together. Is there anything that you could share with folks that you have found useful?
Yeah, I think that when we just go back to the beginning when I was had debilitating trauma and then went through a psilocybin session and then found that relief, it was just almost it's just like shedding that trauma. You feel like you don't have to carry it around anymore. And when you recognize the difference in how you feel before and then how you allow these outside stresses to act upon you. Stress is a result of, of our environment, and our reaction to that stress is what causes the mental health problems. And that's when we put our armor up, and that's when we stop talking to our neighbor because of, for whatever reason, that armor and that trauma and becoming isolated and feeling that way in today's society. You can actually recognize when that trauma starts to creep up in your head again because you knew what it was like before, and now you know what it's like now. And so when you start going back and feeling like you did before, you can feel it in your head, you can feel it in your body. It takes a physical toll and a mental toll. And so when you learn these mindfulness techniques and know that you don't have to live like that, you can. Um, effectively, even after a psilocybin session. I'm not saying every time you feel stressed out, you got to go eat mushrooms. That's not it at all. But the mushrooms have a way of showing you that there is a different way to live. And then when you adopt those practices, when you start to feel that trauma creep up in your head and you know you're heading down that path,
Mhm.
that's when you go and do a 10-minute meditation. That's when you say, I haven't exercised in 10 days. I got to get out there. Or, you get that community connection and you decide that you're going to go out into the world because there's all kinds of ways to release serotonin into your receptors other than just taking a pill, SSRIs. 45 minutes of exercise releases more serotonin into your brain than any of the SSRIs could. And human interaction, successful human interactions do the same thing. Um, Meditation, yoga, journaling, you recognize that your environment, the stresses, no matter what it comes from, your family or your job or politics or too much of this, is really debilitating on our society. And so when you do learn through the mushrooms and the frequency that the mushrooms are trying to show you, that you don't have to be this stress ball. You don't have to wear your trauma around. And so just doing all those things and being very intentional and focusing on your mental health as a priority in your life, as opposed to just accepting that, a lot of people just accept, well, I guess I'm just stressed. I guess I just have trauma. I
Right.
guess this is the way life is. And when there is a mechanism and a plan and doing this work with intention and supporting someone all the way through this journey, it's very possible doing it one client at a time or one veterans group at a time. And hopefully that has a ripple effect and just getting the word out to people, how effective this is and how it can change your life. You can find joy again. You don't have to be stressed every day. There are ways that you can live your life outside of yeah, everything that is going on in our world today.
Yeah. So what I heard you just say is those very same relatively simple embodied practices, the mindfulness, the meditation,
Yeah.
the breathing,
Yep.
the
Breath work.
somatic or the body awareness, just
Mhm.
simple body awareness, and you mentioned also just regular exercise.
Yep.
And that perhaps a slightly more advanced version is what you actually train your participants in as a foundation before they are anywhere near their journey.
Oh, yeah.
And then they can, assuming that they're going to want to do that, they can continue those simple practices out into their lives. And
That's the goal.
that's what I'm hearing you recommend for those of us who are, might not be planning a journey anytime soon, but might want to consider some of these elements for a foundation for our own daily life as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. It's the definition of insanity,
Yeah.
doing the same thing over. So change something, but it's very difficult to change sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and to break habits, we're creatures of habit. And when we do things over and over and over, our trauma becomes a habit
Yeah.
and it becomes hardwired into our brains. And that's what psilocybin can do. I've heard the phrase a lot. It moves things.
Yes.
It can move your trauma away from you so that you do realize you don't have to live with that trauma. And the most important thing is to carry that on with you after your psilocybin journey. And like you said, even if you don't do a journey, go buy a journal today and write the date on page one and just journal in that thing when you feel that trauma. You need a release, you need to get it out. Those defense mechanisms, that's when we bottle it up inside, and that's when trauma starts to manifest itself in the body, releases cortisol, causes disease, affects our relationships. So we all have to work on ourselves, and the best way to do that in my opinion, is to adopt these mindfulness practices. Go join a yoga class. I'm, of course, over 50 years old and I've never done yoga before. Why? And then started doing it and look forward to it. Do it once a week now
Yeah.
without fail, because it's one of the things that I do to keep myself grounded, and exercise and nutrition, and just making sure that you are treating your mental health, is just as important as treating your physical health. And that's I think we just, in our society, we need more of that.
Yeah. And then in this society, which has now basically encased itself in a repetitive pattern of traumatization and re-traumatization ad infinitum, I can't imagine anything more needed in our world. So,
Yeah.
Brian Lindley, and to your spouse, Michelle, and to the other groups that are keeping this kind of practice alive all over Oregon, thank you so much for your work. And I'm hoping that the folks that are viewing this episode, this interview, will be inspired to contribute and possibly even participate with you. And thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, if anyone is interested in finding out more, you just go to our website and there's a button right on there. It says schedule a consultation, and there's about a 90% chance that you will get me on the phone. And I'm happy to talk to you about our program and everything that it entails, and give you more of my personal experiences and examples of, the way we've seen this be very effective for people, and especially for those out there that have the means that can help provide veterans with this healing. It's very important. It's what we need the most right now.
Yeah.
So you can go to our website. My cell phone number's on there, and I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone.
Brian, thanks so much for being with us today, and thank you for your work.
Yeah, and Dean, I appreciate you having me on.
Pleasure.